Hello again. Today we're going to take a look at the KZ and HBB collab, the PR2. It has gotten a lot of praise from all the known reviewers. They all seem to be based off the, I guess first revision, the one that initially came out, the one that had the black mesh directly over the driver. What I have here for this video is, I guess, the newest revision. This is also my third attempt at owning this, my third one. The two prior ones had to get returned and exchanged. I started off with the mesh one, had an issue. I'll get into that later. Let me show you the box though. I paid $50 for this. I recall it was like $5 off at the time, promo going on, something like that. But I paid $50 for this. You can normally get it anywhere from like $45 to $55 on Amazon. Sure, you can get it cheaper through AliExpress or Linsol, but I don't know. I don't feel like dealing with customs or waiting those weeks. But anyway, what you get the small box. Tells you a little bit about it. 13.2 millimeter planer, N52 magnets, dual-sided, 7 magnets on each side of the box. Really nothing going on here. On the back you do get some of the specs there. Now it says 15 ohm plus minus 3 ohm. This particular one measures 21 ohm, between 21 and 22. It's like 21 point something, I can't remember right now, but it's between 21.2 ohm for each side. The first one I got, the one with the black mesh, measured, I think it was like 17 or 18 ohm each side while it worked. Again, I'll get into that later. 20 to 40 hertz, all the standard stuff, nothing really special. And then some more useless stuff on this side. Doesn't really do us any good. The whole recycling thing. Yes, recycle. We all should recycle. Anyway, open up what you get. IMs. This little box. I don't mind the packaging. It's very cheap packaging, but I really don't mind it. I mean, seriously, what more do we really need? As long as the IMs are well protected. I mean, I would like to see something more than just a thin piece of plastic over the IM for other stuff getting dropped on it and shipping and stuff, but I don't know. This guy here, all three of them arrived looking in good condition, at least as far as any damage they would have taken during shipping. They all arrived without shipping damage. Plastic comes up, comes out. In here, you'll have your cable. I've seen a lot of complaints about the cable. I actually like this cable, oddly enough. You get two phones, which arguably are kind of what you need to use for the best experience, but you lose a lot with these. One of mine was all dented up in the package. I don't know if you can see that, but it has that weird shape permanently. And some ridges. The other ones ride fine. So you get that cable, put that off to the side, and now got your IMs. I do have the tips I've been using currently on it. These did not come with those tips. Alright, get the cable out the way, and see if you can see, it's a nice shiny metal plate. There is like a mesh or a grill. I doubt you can see in there. Yeah, maybe you can see that. There is kind of a perforated metal in there, grill, mesh, something. It's not vented. It's not open back. It's just decoration. It's that. So you have the metal cap. That's not vented either. It's all decoration. Then you have the plastic body. And I doubt you can see the stuff on this camera, but if I had, like up close, you zoom in on it, with pictures and stuff, there's a lot of bubbles in this mold. Like, there's they did a very poor job with that molding for this plastic, especially in the nozzle area. There's bubbles all throughout it, so there has a lot of points of weakness, a lot of potential points of failure, brittle spots. That's I noticed that with all three of them I had too. And I maybe, oops, let's see if you can see that. That's the driver right there. You see on mine, there's no, hopefully you can see that. There's no black mesh there. There's just that little vent. It has a, I guess it has some of the black mesh under it, but it also has just metal wire mesh right directly in that hole. I've been using these tips lately. I enjoy those tips, these little sticky tips, they're nice. And then there's the mesh they're using on the front. It's hard to tell if they're using any paper in there. You can almost see down in there, so maybe not. Maybe it's just a really tight wire mesh. And there you can probably get a better look at the driver. It's actually a nice driver, it really is. But there's definitely some issues going on here. There's the revisions, there's unit variance issues, and QC issues. First one I had, like I said, I had the black mesh, and it sounded good. There was nothing I would say that was off-putting about it. It didn't seem as quick as a normal planner. Like, I felt like I was listening to just a good dynamic driver. Like, but I was happy. At $50, I was happy. I had no complaints at all. I was satisfied for 3 days. And after those 3 days, the left side, and for some reason it always seems to be the left side with me, but for those 3 days, or after those 3 days, the left side just, the volume got so much lower than the right side. It would be almost muted on the left and at normal listening volume on the right. Like, it was getting bad. It was getting very odd. So I go and, out of curiosity before sending it back, I took my multimeter out and measured the right, and it was somewhere between 17, 18 ohms. And then I measured the left, and it was like 48, 49, like high 40s. And unfortunately with that first pair, I didn't measure it when I first got it. Like, I always measure my headphones, my IEMs, I do always measure them, but I don't want to measure beforehand, because maybe that might influence me in a bit, make me start thinking there is a channel imbalance, because a lot of stuff, if I can measure a 10% or so impedance difference, I can definitely start hearing channel imbalance. Like, it's like where it's obvious at that 10% level when there's a 10% impedance difference. But it sounded fine for those first 3 days. It was rather enjoyable. Certainly something worthy of the $50 price tag. Like, it was a good deal. But it broke, so I sent it back. I get another one. The next one I get, again, it measures very similar to this one. I think it was like in the 20 range, 20, 21. It wasn't quite as high as this one is, but it was still really close. Like, I've seen other IEMs have that type of variance. They even list the 3 ohm variance on the box, and especially with planners, even with headphones, there definitely seems to be an impedance variance more often than with dynamic drivers. So I get it. I get the second pair, and it's just brutal. Treble murder, insane sibilant, scratchy, and like the bass, like I was hearing this popping every time the bass, just this weird, like I've had that sound before. I had it in a, what was it, Hi-Fi Min HE560s, I think, the old wooden ones that had the MMCX connector. and it was only one side, and I used to hear it was like a pop, and if I'd watch the driver while I was playing music, I could see the driver slapping against the magnet. That's what it was doing on those headphones. So I had to get another pair of those. But anyway, that's what it sounded like I was getting on that second pair, in addition to all the just murderous treble and insane sibilance. So I send it back. I'm like, okay, well, let me at least get a third pair, give it one last shot, because I would like to do a video on them. They do seem to be a popular pair. So now I get this third pair. Sounds nothing like the first pair. It sounds more like the, I guess, what is it? The PR1 Hi-Fi, maybe the PR1 Pro. Like, it sounds more like those. It doesn't, even though I thought they all sounded very similar, equally technical between the whole group, just slightly tuned different. This sounds more like the Hi-Fi-ish, like, I don't know. I didn't hear the, yeah, I don't think I heard the balanced one. But I think it's the balanced one. There was one that was metal that I didn't hear. But anyway, it sounds like those other ones. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not this crazy, awesome deal or anything. Like, I was able to get the, what is it, the Hi-Fi one for the same price I paid for this. So it's nothing that hasn't already been out there. So what I get with this, yeah, I haven't gone over that. It has this, these have this QDC connector. I absolutely hate that thing. But, I mean, like I said, the cable it comes with is quite alright. I'm gonna forget, so I just want to come back to the cable real quick. I'm terrible with this stuff. I have seen a lot of people complain about this cable, and it absolutely is a cheap, arguably trash cable, except it's soft. And if anybody has had a pair of like Sony headphones and ever felt that like vacuum cable that they have, like what is it? Even the XB 950, the Bluetooth ones, they come with the standard like almost rib long ways vacuum type cable, and the one with the XB 950 is a very thin one, so it kind of feels identical to this, but instead of being two, it's just one. But if you measure the impedance of this cable, it measures, what is it, like 1.2 ohms, give or take, exactly the same as their old junk brown cables. These things are garbage. This is an old junk KZ brown cable. I hate this cable. It's absolutely garbage. This measures exactly the same impedance as that, despite the claim of silver plating, which it's not. They have two conductors in each one of these pieces of tubing here. So, what's stopping the positive and negative from shorting out? Nothing. It's not. It's just a normal, I guess, enamel coating or whatever it is. Same crap. That's either colored blue or red and most other cheap stuff. Nothing special going on there. But that high impedance helps these. Because this pair, I love the bass on this pair. As far as the planar IMs I own, this might actually have something. I don't know, the S12 has really good bass. I would argue this has like S12 level quality bass. Like, I thoroughly enjoy the bass on these. Very, very good bass. The perfect quantity for me in bass. The mids, however, upper mids, there is still sibilance, except now where it was just brutal with my second pair. This third pair, it's not brutal all the time. It's more like the graphs I seen of the revisioned PR2. So I don't think there's anything out of the ordinary anymore. I actually think I have a working set now, and it's mostly tolerable. Because if you listen to it long enough, that sibilant starts to fade, and tips definitely make a difference. Like if you can get some nice, really soft foams like the one included to actually fit your ear, it does sound good. You lose some of the speed, and the bass loses some of the tightness. It comes a little soft, so you kind of lose some of the magic it has. But you mostly solve that sibilance issue, and it becomes a IEM that is not going to fatigue you at all, or at least shouldn't. It might still have potential for some people, but for me, with the phone tips, it's a perfectly fine listening experience. I can listen for extended periods of time and not get a headache. However, these sticky tips, it helps that sibilance a little bit. Like there still might be times where I'll get some of it, but it's at the level where if I actually just listen to it for a prolonged period, I kind of adjust to it so it doesn't bother me anymore. And there's definitely some treble action going on here, way more than on the black mesh version. So there's tons of detail all over it. It's very detailed, and that's kind of what I thought with the PR1 Pro. Lots of detail, very crisp, clean, quick. This has all of that, but kind of better bass. It might not even be better bass because I'm going off from memory now. It could actually be almost identical. It may even be the same darn thing now. I'm not entirely sure. But at $50, while you're getting that great detail, you're now getting that great bass. You do have some stuff going on, little peaks and stuff here and there. You kind of gotta work your way around with tips and possibly cables. Like this higher impedance cable actually brings the treble and that sibilance range down just a touch, and it does help when you're using a single-ended source, so it does help. Now running these balanced, they sound very good. There's a lot you don't get, like, and I gotta be more specific with this because running balanced on something like my THX amps, for example, still sibilant but good. There's still just a lot of treble. But if like that Shio thing that I'm really not a fan of, that Truth Ear Shio balanced little portable thing, that adds quite a bit of warmth to stuff, and using these balanced through that sounds very good. It's actually impressive how good they sound for the price. However, there's no soundstage. No soundstage. There's no depth. Like everything is in your head, either to your left, like right in your left ear, right in your right ear, right in between your eyes, and some little variation in between those. There's not much positioning. Like it's not super precise as far as positioning, despite the great separation. Even in that small space, there's just tons of separation. Like any sound in the track, you can easily hear, single out, and focus on. Now, it's not the smoothest sound. For instance, like I would actually compare, I mean, it's half the price. But this, in my opinion, is the next cheapest planar worth buying, or at least planar I am worth buying. I love the Dioko, and the Dioko compared to the PR2 is this warm, buttery smooth, relaxing listen with tons of detail, just a very subdued bass. There's enough there for enjoyment, but going from here to here, you notice, man, if this had the bass this has, oh, you couldn't make enough of them. Everybody would want it. Like this, if anybody thought this had some peaks in the treble or this was sibilant, stay far away from the PR2 because this is way more sibilant, way more peaky in the treble than this. And it does sort of give off a more perceived resolution, even though when you really listen, the separation's identical between the two. The details kind of identical between the two. But you just get this positioning, just great positioning left and right, and this nice wide sound stage with the Dioko. You do not get that with this. So, I don't know. I'm kind of stuck on this one for the simple fact that it's yet another KZ product that has issues. It's another HBB collab that has something weird going on with it. And I don't know. Like, I love the Melee, right? But it took me it took me 2 Melees to find, like, they both sounded different. Like, they sounded like 2 completely different IMs. One was this overall warm, enjoyable experience. The one I have now, the one I love, this great sound stage. Well, not great sound stage, but we're talking $50. This nice sound stage, good separation. It just didn't have a lot going on in treble, which I kind of enjoy at times. The other one was grainy, congested, kind of overly loose sounding. It didn't have anywhere near the detail the second one had. So, and that's with the triple win. So, I mean, are these companies promising things, and then as soon as that initial batch comes out, saying, okay, well, we got that first rush of sales, now we can just make it really cheap and capitalize on the latecomers? Like, is it a planned thing? Like with the KZ stuff, like with this one, it was like, okay, we got all the good reviews, all the hype is now out there. Now we can cut costs and let the flood of buys come in. So, like, this seems too coincidental to me. And like, what was it? The DQ6. I also had issues. Like, I haven't done a video on that other HBB QKZ thing. You can call them a different company if you want, whatever. I still think that's KZ too. I don't care. Come on. There's 20 different companies, somehow all using the same brand drivers, the same housing, the same BAs, the same wiring, the same glue, the same cables, the same boxing, the same everything. But yet, oh no, it's just all these different companies. They just happen to be ordering from the same factory all the time. Like, none of that makes sense to me. And if they are individual companies, you would think they'd be competing with themselves. So you would think, like, they wouldn't. I don't know. I can't imagine seeing them not want to have, like, if there's someone they want to do a collab with, you would think maybe they like him enough to kind of have him exclusive for a bit. I don't know. It's just weird that all these companies are fine with someone doing collabs with all these other companies. It's whatever. Sorry about that rant. I rant enough on just the IMs themselves. But anyway, so back to the PR2. I really wish I could recommend them. What I have here, again, it's not what we were told we were getting. It's not what it was when it came out at all. Like, this sounds so different than the black mesh one I had when I first got it. And that one, I would kind of prefer to have that one, because if I want more treble, I can tune it. Although this revision does have its benefits, and I can actually see people liking this better. But if they like this better, they should have already had the PR1 Pro or the PR1 Hi-Fi, because there were plenty of times those could have been had at this price. So I'm not sure the purpose of the PR2 anymore, and the fact that it took me 3 to get one that lasted any period of time. Like, I've had this set just over a week, week and a half, and out of all 3, it's the longest. Like I said, that first one lasted 3 days, or the second one, no, it was the first one, the black mesh one. Yeah, that one lasted 3 days, and the second one just sounded crap. But I don't know, it's too much of a gamble when this is now $90. You could still find it even cheaper than that at times. You can get that, and every one of these I've heard sounded very similar. I haven't seen any talks online about variances in these to this anywhere near this degree. Most stuff doesn't have variances or revisions like this one has. Or even something I was just recently talking about. Don't take this as the only other $50, $40 option. There's tons of them. Like I said, even though they don't make the Melee anymore, that is a worthy alternative to this. The Truth Ear Zero, worthy alternative to this. Might not have the details that this has, but it has stuff it doesn't offer, and what it does have is acceptable or good. Like this C2, I paid $35. You can normally find it between $40 and $50, and this is an exciting, kind of powerful experience. Very speedy, but very intense, closed in, but not, like I said, just very simple sound. You're hearing the music, you're hearing all the details, but the staging just really isn't there. This is, again, an intense sound. The bass isn't quite as detailed as this, but it's good bass. Arguably better than the bass on the T3. It's certainly a touch more in quantity, and like I said, again, arguably better in quality. The mid-range is somewhat similar to this, minus it doesn't quite reach the sibilance level or get as close to it as this does. There's a lot going on in the treble, but you get a little more sound stage, you get some height, some width, some depth, so you're giving up a little bit of that detail for some other traits. So it's I can't say the PR2's better than the C2. Can't say the C2's better than that. I would say they're equal. There's just trade-offs between the two, and something like the Dioko has less trade-offs than both of these. It's worth, you're paying extra to get more traits in one package. So regardless of how much detail is in the PR2, I think it's actually in its correct price bracket. It is a $50 IM. It's just a very detailed $50 IM, but it had shit features in other areas, or shit capabilities in other areas. It's in its right price point. Hopefully I didn't confuse anybody with this weird ramble or piss anybody off with my little take on HBB, and because I don't know, I didn't even touch, I probably shouldn't, but I can't help myself. Like, I don't understand him working with KZ after what they went through, the things he said about what they went through, and how all of a sudden they couldn't be trusted, even if it's just QC issues, to now he trusts them enough to try to sell his viewers, to profit off his viewers with them. So, and he seems to, never mind. That should have said enough for kind of how I feel about it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you guys buy PR2 nowadays, you're going to be getting what I got. Who knows? Maybe they'll silently revise it again and they'll go back to the mesh. I don't know. But just know if you get this one, I hope you like your details. Oh, I actually should actually. We're 30 minutes in, and I haven't even spoken about the music. I have gone over a little bit about how it sounds, but what I will say, because it's not sibilant in everything, and the treble, while intense, is tolerable. It's the sibilance that really gets me. And I noticed a lot of heavy metal and stuff like that. Sibilance isn't too much of an issue, and stuff like that, like especially when there's a lot going on, really benefits from the planner in here. And it sounds like heavy metal sounds amazing, and it's not something I listen to all the time, but it sounds great on this, just like it sounded great on the C2 or C3 here. Jesus, I keep mixing those two up. But just like it sounds great on the C3, like I love the way metals. It is a much more natural sound. Like stringed instruments sound much more natural on the C2. They sound, I don't want to say brittle, but they're definitely very, very quick and kind of metallic sounding, almost overly metallic, but it's still very enjoyable. You just lose the depth, like the width, the sound stage and stuff with this one. But it's incredibly enjoyable. It's an exciting listen with heavy metal. A lot of songs with female vocalists just sound wonderful. There is, again, that unnaturalness in vocals though that this has. I did comment, like, these kind of have a thinness to the vocals and stuff, not quite as natural sounding as something like the T3 Plus. Well, this is even a step worse in that regard, where you get a little bit more of that, I guess, metallic timbre, almost hollowness to it, a thinness. It's a little bit more on this, despite all the warmth and stuff in the lower mids and bass region. There's still like I guess, brittleness. It does sound kind of brittle in the vocal region. So it can take away a bit, but all the detail kind of makes up for it. And then back to the heavy metal thing. The way these do bass, when the bass guitarist gets going, that's where these things shine. So if you're someone who really enjoys a bass guitar and stuff like that, maybe the PR2 is the recommended buy for you, because that's where it still sounds kind of natural, and the detail there and the speed, and it has punch. So it's in that region, it's even punchier than the C3 here. And maybe it's just because it's quicker, but there's a little more abruptness to the sound. You get all the little grittiness, the vibrating and everything. It actually is very enjoyable. Hip hop seems to be where these struggle the most, oddly. I thought that's where they would shine, the way they were advertised, that, oh, this is fine to be a planer for hip hop. The bass, dead on. Perfect. Amazing. That's exactly how I want planar bass to be when I listen to hip hop. But for some reason, hip hop seems to suffer the most from this sibilance. Like, it's almost every other song I find is sibilant with these. Not so much with this tips. And it does get a little better when run balanced through the shield. Like, I do that combo. I'm generally good, not too much I gotta worry about. I still will get something here and there, but nowhere near the 50% sibilant rate that I got just single-ended. Oh, and back to how power hungry these are. I don't want to say they're really anything crazy as far as power. Like, they're definitely more power hungry than the dynamic drivers I have, but so is the Dioka. And if I put it, actually, it's kind of weird. As far as desktop stuff, I don't really notice like the volume level seems to be the same when I switch between these two, despite this being a lower impedance than this. But when I use my portable stuff, the what is it, the KA2 balance, the Truth Air Shio, and that the FC4, they kind of get close to similar, like nearly equal. But the Shio and the KA2, when I swap this, the PR2 will be a little quieter than the Dioko, so it does seem it's a little less efficient than the Dioko is, so a little bit more power, but not this crazy amount. It seems to be like you gotta worry more about the source and the traits it has than you do the power it has. Like, I can plug this in my phone, granted it won't have as much bass as it does through the FC4 single-ended or any of my balance stuff, portable wise, but it'll still be like there's enough bass there like that where it's still a fine listen. So it's nothing crazy. Don't let anybody scare you away if they're saying, oh, you need this crazy desktop stuff going on. It's a planner. Like, you shouldn't expect to plug it in your phone and get the best experience it has. You're gonna need something, but you're not gonna need anything with watts. That's a gross exaggeration. They grossly exaggerated that with the other, what was it, the old tin hi-fi planners. Yeah, they were power hungry, but that was kind of before we had these balance dongles that are putting out damn near half a watt per channel. We're getting in the 300, 400 range, 400 milliwatt range now per channel. Like, it's crazy. So we're kind of at the point where we don't really have to worry about that as long as we have something adequate. What I will say though, you do kind of, just like the Dioko, it was, I would have said the same thing about that. Like, okay, it'll sound good with stuff that offers 70 milliwatts, like the 7 hertz 7.1, stuff like that, those little ones. It'll sound good on those, but you're still not getting the potential. You kind of need to hit that 100 milliwatt range and up to really get all the bass and power this thing has. And it does, the more power does help with the sibilance. Not as much as tips, but it does help. Anyway, that's it. That's done. All rants are over. Again, thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Please leave a thumbs up, a comment, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Again, thank you guys for watching. Have a good day.